Hello, today we're going to start our case study for social and cultural continuity and change. As I've said before, we're going to be doing China. Now I know this will be strange for those of you who are of Chinese background and may have lived in China. However, I would like you to have a look at this through a sociological lens rather than a traditional lens that you would have been used to looking through. However, you will have a little bit of an upper hand in regards to knowledge about certain traditions and political issues in China. So feel free to add anything in or tell other students about things you may know, and we can discuss how they fit in with the course. So what I want you to do is I want you to pause this video, and you're going to have about a minute to think about what you already know about China. Now we're going to look at it through the fundamental concepts, and if we have time, which you're going to actually make time for, through the additional concepts. So have a think about what you know about the culture of China, the people of China, the society, the environment, and continuity and change, and look at some of the other additional concepts such as power and authority, technology, etc. Okay, so pause it now and write down everything you know under those terms. Okay, so here is a map of China. Some of you will notice that some of the disputed territories and external territories are also highlighted in red. You'll see down at the bottom here, we have Hong Kong that isn't covered in red because it is self-governing. But you'll also notice that all of the bigger cities have a slightly bigger dot, and you'll also notice that a lot of these cities are located on the east coast, closest to the Pacific Ocean. As we will discuss, and I'm sure you already know, China is the most populated country in the world, 1.3 billion people, and this is one of the reasons we're looking at population change and family life as part of this topic. Okay, so what I would like you to do, I'd like you to go to the PowerPoint version of this video, and the video YouTube clip in the bottom right-hand corner is a video about China in 10 minutes. So as you're watching that video, I want you to apply the fundamental concepts, and I would like you to find evidence of this video, to relate to the fundamental concepts. I would also like you to notice if there's anything changed since this video was made. So something the video might mention that has since changed over time. What I'd also like you to do is I want you to consider how some of these additional course concepts relate to the video. Some of them may relate more than others, but I would like you to try to apply as many as you can to the video. So pause this video, go to Google Classroom and find the PowerPoint that's associated with this video. Okay, so traditional China. Now, it's probably unfair to break the traditions of China down into less than 10 bullet points, but we're just going to focus on these things because it's what will give us an idea about continuity and change as we talk about it through the course. For more information, you will go to the textbook where you'll have a look at the textbook pages related to the intro of China. So, first part there talks about Confucianism, and Confucianism is the teaching of Confucius. But we're just going to focus on some of the main Confucius teachings that have been adapted into Chinese society. The first one is filial piety. I'm sure it's called something different in China. I don't know the Chinese word for it, but basically it's the similar to the family structure where there's a patriarchal society. There's a respect for elders, particularly the father of the family, respect for grandparents, and age is a very big part of that. The second one there is frugality. So another word for frugality would be someone who is maybe money conscious or conservative with the amount of money they spend. So not something traditionally Chinese people haven't been throwing money around. They know how to use money well and not waste it, but also not with money, but also with belongings, to be not wasteful. But you'll notice that has changed over time through the emerging middle class. Then we have modesty. So traditionally Chinese people are very modest in the way they dress, but also in the way they act. So you won't see many Chinese people making a big deal of things, bragging, being loud in public, drawing attention to themselves. We've discussed the fact that Chinese people do not necessarily like to make themselves appear better or different from the group. The group comes before the individual, because China is a collectivist society. Then it talks about the dynastic cycle, so that's the different dynasties. That's something in traditional China that they've moved away from now, but often when they're talking about different historical events in China, they'll refer to the dynasty that it was in. Patriarchal society, so as I said before, that links to filial piety. Most societies were traditionally patriarchal societies. Then we have the imperial social structure, which will be talked about on another slide. The political system is communism, so they are a one-party state run by the Chinese Communist Party, and that came in with Mao Zedong when he overtook the Chinese Nationalist Party. As I've mentioned before, religion is not a big thing in China. When Mao Zedong came in, he attempted to eliminate rights to religion. However, Buddhism and Taoism is two religions that link very closely to traditional China and therefore are not generally looked down upon. But you'll notice that Muslims are often persecuted in China, and it's not something that you would draw attention to. Okay, so on the topic of religion, I'd like you to pause this video, go to the PowerPoint and watch. This picture is hyperlinked to a video that briefly talks about Taoism, Buddhism, and Confucianism, which relate to the traditions of China. So if you could pause it there and go and watch that video and add anything to your notes regarding that. Okay, so foot binding was once a cultural practice in China. Many women had their feet bound as children, and as you can see, they were bound very, very tight to the point where it deformed the feet. The idea was that the feet would stay small forever, and women were seen as beautiful for having small feet. I think you can also tell from that photo that when they're being unbound, the feet are very deformed to the point where bones are broken, they have not been able to grow properly, and women have not been able to walk very well. There's reports of when rural women would do this, but then still be expected to work, because often rural women had to work. It was almost impossible for them to complete a lot of their duties because of this, because it's quite disabling. So it started in the 10th century, and in the early 20th century is when it became unpopular. It's eventually outlawed in 1911, but there was some people in rural areas that continued it for some time after this. So, bound feet women in China, you can go to the hyperlink and you can read the article. There should be a video attached to it, but sometimes when I go to the article, the video doesn't work, so hopefully it will work for you. If not, just read the article. This is an example of change to traditional China. It did happen for about 10 decades, about 10 centuries. So it was quite embedded in traditional society. However, this is an example of change over time. So you can add it to your examples of change to traditional China. Okay, so the Chinese social hierarchy, this is traditional hierarchy. It's very different today. They saw that scholars and officials were atop of the social hierarchy, then followed by farmers and peasants. Now, those of you who have studied history might find that interesting, that farmers and peasants are ahead of artisans and merchants. Looking at most hierarchies of other traditional or ancient societies, farmers are towards the bottom. However, Chinese society values those people who create food and give food for society to live. So therefore, they are seen as higher in the social hierarchy than those who are there to make money for themselves, like artisans or merchants. However, this type of social hierarchy does not exist today, and they have taken on more of a modern and westernized version of a social hierarchy. Also note there that I've added women. So in traditional society, as discussed earlier, it was a patriarchal society. Women were seen as lesser. Even if a woman was part of a higher section of the hierarchy, they were still seen as very low compared to men in all sections of the social structure. This has obviously changed over time, but it's something that we will discuss as we study this case study, the role of women and how that has improved over time in China. Okay, so I have put a number of terms relating to traditional China on this PowerPoint slide. What I would like you to do is I want you to look at those, and I would like you to write which of these have changed, or elements of these that have changed, and which of these continue to remain the same. So, for example, the dynastic cycle, you could say that has changed, and that they have moved to a Western style of dictating when a time period exists, partially because they removed emperors and things like that. So that is a change. However, if we look at filial piety, we could say that there is some elements of change due to the influence of westernization. However, that in many parts of the country and in many families, filial piety continues to remain the same. So what I'd like you to do is pause this video and identify which of these terms have elements of change and which of them have elements of continuity.